Hi folks. So this week we did a bit of basic animation and let's go through that. Forgive my very lockdown haircut. So let's start out with our default scene here. So the first thing we did was to take this cube, tab into edit mode. Oh, my screencast keys. I love not having those on. Tab into edit mode, and then I moved this cube over this way by going GX6 to put it over 6 meters in that direction. And then I tabbed to leave edit mode again, and I added a mirror modifier. And oh, sorry, I forgot to tab back into edit mode. I also want to move it up by 1, so GZ1, just to sit it on, so it's now sitting on the ground plane there and not cutting through it. And that we're going to call a gate. So that was our first gate. Next thing we do is we're going to add in a new mesh. That's a plane. I'm going to hit tab to enter it, and I'm going to scale it S20 and hit return. So that's actually it was probably larger. Let me try S50. Yeah, that's it. Good size. S50. So scale it up by 50 times and tab back into object mode. So that now constitutes our um, ground. So these are gate. This is a gate, and we're going to drive a van through a series of these gates, and we're going to weave the gates in a kind of a serpentine pattern, and we're going to have the van follow through the gates. So let's start duplicating these gates. So I'm just going to go to probably a little bit different to what I did the last time, but I'm just going to go snap into a top view there by pressing Z over here, and I make sure I have my first gate selected, and I'm going to do a Shift D to duplicate, and then I'm just going to move this gate a bit away from the other one. It doesn't matter exactly where you put these, just need a few, and they shouldn't be too close together. And I'm going to duplicate again, Shift D, and I'm going to put it there, and Shift D, and there, and Shift D, maybe here, Shift D there, and Shift D there. So that gives us a nice kind of pattern, zigzag pattern that we want our van to drive through. So let's create a little simple van for ourselves to drive through these gates. This is going to be hyper simple. So I'm going to add a new cube there. Oh, sorry, that was a plane. Let's try that again. Add a new cube, and let's tab into edit mode again. Let's GZ1 to move it up by 1. Set it on the plane. Let's make sure we're in face select mode here, the third button along. Hit that top face, and let's just GZ to bring it down a bit to about that high. Let's select all A and scale it by 3 along Y, that direction. Scale SY3 to scale it to get that sort of a shape. And let's add a loop cut. Control R to add a loop cut, and we'll bring it up. Click to add it, and then bring it towards the front, about there. So it's about a third of the way along. Now make sure we're in face select mode again, and we're going to click this face here, and we're going to go E to extrude, and just bring it up again. So it's about the same as that, roughly. Doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be precise. And then I'm just going to S, Y, and scale it in a little bit in Y, just to give it a shape like that. And then the last thing I did was I grabbed these faces here and this one here at the front by holding shift and clicking on each of those, and I just scaled them in a bit in scale X, just to give a further little bit of a shape to it. And that's our van shape. It's hyper basic. We're going to be looking, this thing is just something that we can run through the barriers. Okay, so that's all of our modeling done. Modeling is very much not the focus of this. The focus is really going to be on the animation portion. So we just want something very basic we can use to show the principle. But it would be nice if we added a little bit of a few materials to things. So let's just select the ground. Let's switch over here to material preview. And let's select the ground first and go to the material panel. And we add a new material, double click here and call it ground. And I'm going to change the base color here to just Take the darkness slider down, make it quite a dark gray like that. That's fine. Let's select one of the gates, double click. Actually, let's go through them in order. I'll just go them in the order they're here. And we'll just call this material, it already has the default material, so we'll just call that one gate. And I'm going to set it to be a green. And you can see now all of the gates, because they were copied from this first one, they all have this same material that it did. So that would be good, except we now want to animate these gates individually later on. So we really want them to have their own material. So how do we do that? So let's select them each in turn down the list here. Select gate 1. And this button here is going to create a copy, a duplicate of the material, but it'll be a unique copy of its own. So I'll just click on that one. And you see now that this one has gate 001, whereas this one has gate. So these are now two materials. So if I change this one, you see it only changes for that gate and not for the others. Let's put that back. So again, let's select number 2 here and then copy. Number 3 and copy. Number 4 and copy. Number 5 and copy. And number 6 and copy. So that's good. Now all of the gates have a unique material on them. And because I selected them down the list here, I selected them in the order in which I was creating the new materials. The names happen to match. If I selected them in a different order, they would have been, if I selected this one first, it would have had gate 001. So the fact that I selected them down in the same order helped. I haven't named our van, so I'm just going to make sure I do that too. That's van, and I'm going to give van here in the material panel for van. I'm going to create a new material. Again, I'm just going to call it van, and I'm going to set that to a kind of an orangey tone, orangey yellow. That's fine. That's good enough. Okay. All right. So that's materials done. So let's look at a bit of animation. But first, maybe what we'll do is we'll place our van at its starting position. So I'm going to just pop to a top view again by clicking Z there. With the van selected, I'm going to hit G, and I'm going to move the van to somewhere over here, just beyond the first gate. So that's the front of the van is pointing down this way, and this is our first position. So I've pulled up this timeline here a little bit just so I can show it. This is where our keyframes go. So this is where we tell Blender at this time I want this value, and another time I want another value. So we're first going to animate locations and rotations, but you can animate most any value in Blender, and you'll see that in a while when I actually going to animate the base color as well of these gates so that they change color after the van goes through them. So almost any value in Blender can be animated. You just say, here's the value I want at this time, here's the value I want at this other time, and what Blender tries to do is that it tries to move smoothly from one value to another across that time period, from the first one you specified to the second one you specified. So let's just do that. So now we're at this first position here, and we want to make sure the timeline is back at frame 1 there. See it says 1 in blue. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can drag this header here on the timeline till it's back to frame 1, or you can use this back button here. Just do it. Just jump back to frame 1. That's handy. Or again, jump to the final frame. This is where you can control the number of frames in the animation. As a number, at the moment it's 25 frames, and how long that is depends on how many frames per second you've set in your project. By default, it's set to 24, so this is a little bit over 10 seconds right now. So that's what that is. So we've got the van. Make sure you've got the van selected, and then hovering around the van, just hit I, and you'll get this keyframe menu pop up. So we're going to be animating this van's location and rotation. So I'm just going to store the location and rotation now at this time. And you'll see a little orange marker appear down here. And that means that at frame 1, it knows for specific values for location and rotation. And in fact, if I go to this image properties window, you can see that these have turned yellow as well to indicate that they're now keyframed. So that's a little indicator too that these are now being animated. So then let's move to the end of the animation, all the way to the end. So again, I'm just to use this button to jump to the very end to 250. And I'm just going to hit G, and I'm just going to move the van all the way to the end here. And I'm going to imagine the van kind of came in like this and kind of drove through the gate, maybe at a bit of an angle. So it would be coming around like that and maybe drive through the gate. So it's probably going to be at a bit of an angle, probably going to be a bit more towards the middle, and it's going to be at a bit of an angle. So I'm just going to hit or just to give it a slight. Ooh, I'm too far away from it. Let me zoom in so I can see which way it's pointing. I don't want to rotate it too much. Or just to give it that slight rotation there. So now, again, I haven't captured this. So now I'm going to hit I to capture location and rotation. Now you see we've got two keyframes. So now the software can animate between those two keyframes. So you see that it animates both the location and also you see that slight turn occurring as it goes along from one to the other. You can see the values, they're changing as well on this side as you go. So when I'm on the keyframes, you see this yellowy color. When I'm in between the keyframes and Blender is working out a value that's in between these two, based on where we are on the in between the two values, you'll see it green there showing it's animating. So if I can hit play here or hit the space bar, that space bar is also play. You can see that the van is now moving between these two spots. So it's getting to the from the start and it's getting to the end and it's doing that fine, but of course it's not at all swerving around the barriers in the middle. So what can we do? All right, let's stop it playing. I just hit the button there. Let's go back. Let's rewind the timeline until the point at which it's going through the first gate fine. But at this stage here, just go until it's kind of halfway through this gate. It's going through this gate and clipping into it a bit. So that's no good. So really we would like to see it going through this gate and then it's going to kind of come round and then it's going to go through this gate again. It's going to tend to go towards the inside of each of these gates, depending. So I'm not going to put it into the very middle, but I'm going to keep it closer to this side. So I'm going to hit G to move it, and I'm going to hit OR to actually straighten it up a little bit. And then I'm going to hit I, location rotation, to capture a keyframe there. And now it's going to drive from the first gate to the second gate, but of course it's going to not go in the right way after that. So let's go down to about here, where it should be driving through these gates. And again, I'm going to hit G, and I'm going to bring it here, and I'm going to hit I, and store that. And again, I'm going to roll down to, actually that's maybe okay. But at this one, no, that's not good. It needs to be in the gate. So I'm going to hit G and bring it to there. But don't forget to hit, once you've moved it, don't forget to hit I to create a keyframe. Actually, I'm going to rotate it a bit more. It's probably going to be, because it's going to have to be coming back towards these gates again. So I'm going to hit I again to update that keyframe. And let's roll forward a bit more. So there, again, G, it's going to need to be over to here. And or it's going to need to be rotated a little bit towards that last one. And I, again, to actually lock that in. So now we see we've got keyframes for most of these gates here. Actually, ooh, and it actually hits the, it actually is not coming over far enough. So here as well, we're going to have to give it another keyframe. G to move it just so it makes sure it doesn't hit this. And I, location rotation. So let's see now, how's that look? Boom. All right, so it's now moving successfully through the gates. Most of the gates we have a specific keyframe for. That second gate we don't actually, just because it happens to be kind of going in the right direction already. It kind of takes that, because of where it starts, it kind of gets through that gate okay. But now the other thing that's odd is between these gates, it's kind of just sliding sideways. It's not really at a natural angle. So let's go back to where it's between two gates where it needs to change direction. Let's go to about halfway. So it's about halfway there. And let's just do rotation, or let's put it at a more realistic rotation so that it's turning towards that gate. And we're going to hit I. And I'm only going to capture rotation this time. And let's move to that next one. That looks, again, it's sliding there. So that doesn't look natural. Let's give a little rotation so that it's pointing towards it. And I, rotation. Ooh, now it's crashing. So might need to move. We need a keyframe here now when it's passing through that gate because it's not in the right spot. So we're going to hit G. keep the angle at the moment. I, location, rotation, that's okay. Onto that one. Again, it's turned too much, so it should still be angled more that way. So I, rotation. Again, it needs to have more of a rotation there as well. I, rotation. And I think definitely there it needs more of a rotation to take it around. Oh, and here it's hitting the barrier. So maybe what we'll do is just at this point where we have a keyframe already, we'll just select it and G, move it over a bit, and hit I to update that keyframe again. So now our car, our little van, let's look at it from this angle, hit play. It now successfully weaves through the barriers. So at least one of them looks a little bit odd. Yeah, it does a weird slide. It does a weird slide there. Let's go back. Let's stop it playing. Let's go back to here. So what does it do? And it comes around there, and oh, it does that very weird. So that's a case maybe with this actually keyframe might actually not be helping. It's just making it weird. It just doesn't look quite right. So I'm actually going to select that keyframe and delete it. You probably won't have to do that. I'm just showing it in mine. So let's see. It goes around. Yeah. It does need a keyframe there because it is hitting the barrier. But maybe we'll just move it gently. G. So it barely misses it. And see if that looks better. Oh, it still hits it actually if it's back there. So I need to move it a little bit more away from the barrier. I. Yeah, there we go. All right, so that's our animation for the movement of the. Let's just play it from the start. Movement of the van, all 10 seconds of it. So that's a handcrafted animation from scratch. Now, just to prove that we can animate other things as well as the actual van moving, let's animate each of these gates instead so that they change color after the van's gone through. Now notice when I select the van, you see the keyframes for the van, but when I select something else, these aren't animated yet, so they don't show any keyframes down here. So that's the difference. You always have to make sure you've got the object you're animating selected. Otherwise you won't see the keyframes. So I'm going to select this van, this gate, and I'm going to slide the van, and I want it going, I sort of want to make sure it's green when it's coming in. So let's go down to the material panel. I'm just going to hover over the base color here, and I'm going to hit I. Now notice it didn't prompt me that time, unlike when I hit I over here, because here I'm indicating a value very explicitly. So it knows exactly what value I mean. It doesn't have to ask me anything. So it's put a keyframe in there for the color. And you can see again, it's changed the view here. It looks different. It's got this solid kind of diamond here at the end, and it's got a yellow box around it showing it's keyframed. So let's then slide this forward a little bit where the van has just gone past there approximately. And let's select this color and let's go to a red color. Now I want to use this color again. So I'm just going to go to the hex page here, and I'm just going to right click on that. Or sorry, actually right click doesn't work. I'm going to go Control C to copy it. So then that's in my computer clipboard, so I can paste it again. All right, so that's my red color. So again, let me close that, and I'll just hit I there to keyframe that again. So now you see it's two keyframes. So it's green here and red there. And notice that, so before this it's always green, after this it's always red, but you notice in the middle, between the two, it actually does this sort of transition. The colors are also animated. It doesn't just snap from one color to another. It sort of blends from the green to the red, going through a kind of an orangey phase. So let's pick another one and go again. So again, there, let's just set the keyframe. Wouldn't matter if we could have set this keyframe at the start. I'm just setting it before the van goes through, but we could have set all these green keyframes right back at the start. No, actually, that wouldn't have had the same effect. There's a reason why I'm doing it. That's not true because if I set the keyframe back at the start, it would start automatically animating the color change. It starts the color change for the moment of this keyframe, so I don't want that color change to start until we're just entering and just kind of passing through the gate for the first time. So it's actually, I'm doing it right. So I've gone past the gate. So I'm going to click on here, go to hex, click on this, and I'm going to go Control V to paste that color in, that red color, and hit I to keyframe it. That's that one. Let's select the next gate. Let's roll on to about there. Let's key I to keyframe the green. Go just past it. Again, paste the color in, Control V, and again I to keyframe it. Nope, I to keyframe it. There we go. And then let's roll on again to this next one. I to keyframe it there just before we go in. Then slide to where it just goes past. Paste the color in, red, and then again I to keyframe again. This is very repetitive. They're all exactly the same. Again, select this guy, slide on to here. I to keyframe it there at green and go past, change the color to the red color, paste, and I to keyframe it again at red. Nearly there now, two more to do. I to keyframe it there. Roll there to where the car has just passed. Paste the color. I to keyframe it there. And the last one. I to keyframe the color there. And finally paste the color for the red. And I. And that's it. So now our gates change color as we zoom through them. So let's just watch that. Okay. So that's it. That's our basic animation done. So I hope you followed along with that. If you can do that, it'll be a good stepping stone to what we're going to do next. So thanks for watching, folks, if you did, and we'll see you next week.